Welcome back to Zero to Hero. Today, you'll be learning how to analyze the metagame and how to use usage stats to build a Pokemon set. It's common to go into team building with an idea of some Pokemon you want to use. While they may not be the best, maybe they're your favorite or underdeveloped in the current metagame. Using niche Pokemon or your favorites and doing well with them can be incredibly fun and rewarding. But if you fill your team with niche picks or bad Pokemon in the current metagame, or just bad Pokemon overall, you're gonna have a bad time. Even elite players will have a hard time winning games with teams full of niche or bad Pokemon. So when looking to build a team, feel free to use a couple of your favorites, but try to have most of your team be stronger, meta-relevant Pokemon. Today's question is, how do we know what Pokemon are strong and meta-relevant? And once we find them, how do we build them? Just before we get into it, make sure to hit the subscribe button. It really helps grow the channel. As mentioned in the A Quick Start to Team Building video, you can find tournament results relatively quickly and can see what Pokemon performed well at the top level. They often make an infographic of the 12 most used Pokemon at official events, but only 12 Pokemon doesn't really showcase an entire metagame. We'll look at two incredible resources that allow us to find out what the most common meta-relevant Pokemon are, then we'll figure out how to build a set based off of their usage stats. This first website is labmouse.net, which is a relatively new website that has a good amount of data and is well laid out and easy to read. Our second resource is Pokemon Showdown's usage stats, which are posted publicly. This option has much more data, but it's not as easy to navigate. Labmouse stats are taken from only tournament play, and it shows trends and how the metagame changes from tournament to tournament. Showdown is strictly ladder play. Since ladder games happen way more frequently, there's a lot more data to pull from there. Both are good indications on the metagame, but it depends what data you want to look at. And since there's nothing stopping us from using both, we'll end up using both for this video. Labmouse.net has a news feed, similar to Victory Road, but what we're here for is on the left column, which has the top used Pokemon from most to least common. Pokemon Showdown gives the exact usage rates for each Pokemon, and I'll showcase that later in the video. If you want to check a timestamp, you can. But for now, we see Gholdengo is currently the most used according to their data, so let's click on him. We see a bunch of graphs, so let's go over them left to right. Our first graph is the Pokemon's overall usage. We can hover the graph to see the exact usage stats and from what tournament that number was pulled from. Looks like he was used on 32% of teams as of the most recent tournament, and that's a very high usage rate. For the rest of the graphs, we'll refer to the Baltimore Regional since it was a very large official event and larger data pools are better to pull from. Okay, so let's say we want to add Gholdengo to our team. What moveset do we use? If we're unsure, we can get a strong starting point by looking at the rest of the usage stats. The next graph is the ability usage. Since Gholdengo only has one ability, we can't change out his good as gold. Next, there is a Terra type graph. While there are 8 Terra types listed as common, hovering the graph gives us more insight on which ones are used more than others. At Baltimore, we can see Steel was at 52%, then Dragon was at 39%, and the next most common was Water at only 5%. This tells us that while there are a number of viable Terras, Steel and Dragon will likely serve us the best. Next up, you're going to have to use your critical thinking skills a bit. To do this, ask yourself questions about the data that you can then answer to get more information that the website doesn't give you. Why would we use Terra Steel over Terra Dragon and vice versa? What benefits does Terra Steel give us? Well, offensively, it boosts our Make It Rain damage, and defensively removes our Ghost and Dark weaknesses. Terra Dragon, on the other hand, provides no offensive boost whatsoever, since Gholdengo doesn't use any Dragon moves. But it removes all of our weaknesses, including Ground, Ghost, Dark, and Fire. It also gives us resistance to moves that hit us neutrally, like Water, Electric, and it turns our fire weakness to a resistance. So Terra Steel is more offensive and Terra Dragon is the better defensive option. Most Pokemon will have 2 or 3 Terra types as their most common, with other niche types at low usage rates, like we see here with Water and Fairy. These low rate options aren't necessarily bad, but the higher usage rate ones are just much more consistent. We can also see that Steel and Dragon stats seem to have an ebb and flow, with one being more common at one point, and then the other rising as the most common one falls. This is just the metagame adapting or changing, and it's very common to see in many aspects. Both Steel and Dragon remain the top 2 throughout all the tournaments though, by far. So let's build 3 Gholdengo sets, and we can pick one to use on our team once the team is more fleshed out. 2 Gholdengo will be Steel, and the other will be Dragon. Next up is the items. The top 3 items are Choice Specs at 42%, Leftovers at 24%, and Life Orb at 19%. Again, we see here at more recent tournaments, these have shifted a bit, with Life Orb peaking for a little bit and then Leftovers rising, but these three remain the most common options still. Choice Specs and Life Orb are offensive items, so they're probably used with Terra Steel, while Leftovers is a defensive item, so it'll probably go better with Terra Dragon. Next up is the moves. We can see these moves have a very steady curve, meaning there isn't a lot of variability in Gholdengo's moveset. Make It Rain and Shadow Ball are staples, due to the sheer strength of Make It Rain and the fact that Ghost is a great offensive pairing with Steel, hitting types that resist Steel like Steel and Electric, as well as hitting opposing Gholdengo super effectively. The next two most common moves are Nasty Plot and Protect, which are between 55 and 70% usage. Obviously, we won't run either of these moves on a choice to Gholdengo, since locking into them is pretty useless. That's where these last few moves are scattered about. Trick, Power Gem, Thunderbolt, and Focus Blast are all options on a Choice Specs Gholdengo. Since there's just 2 slots, you can't run all 4, so you'll pick and choose which of these coverage options you'll want. That explains the wide variety of moves at a lower usage, since different teams will want different coverage options. Lastly, on Lab Mouse, we have Common Teammates. We can see this graph is all over the place, from tournament to tournament. This means that Gholdengo is a very flexible Pokemon that can fit on a variety of teams. We already have 3 potential sets, so that's a huge amount of flexibility. Of course, all Pokemon will have other top Pokemon like Gholdengo, Incineroar, and Rillaboom as common teammates due to their high usage, just by virtue of being so common. So when looking for teammates that perhaps have good synergy with Gholdengo specifically, look for Pokemon that are not in the top usage overall, but are still common partners. For example, we see Porygon 2 and Talonflame as other common partners, and they're not in the top usage overall. These Pokemon provide speed control for Gholdengo, which is something he really benefits from his middling speed stat. Let's take a quick look at Archaludon. We can see it consistently has Pelipper as its most common partner, with Basculegion, Amoonguss, and Mousehold being other common teammates. These are all not top usage Pokemon, but they're still common partners. This is because they synergize with Archaludon specifically. Keep an eye out for trends like these when looking at partner usage graphs. It's likely worthwhile to use Pokemon that have strong synergy with your current Pokemon. Overall, this graph shows Gholdengo's flexibility and does not look like Archaludon's with 1 or 2 highly consistent partners. Although Talonflame has good pairing stats at about 30%, it's not strong enough to say it's a must-have like Pelipper's 80 to 90% combo with Archaludon. Let's not worry about pairing Gholdengo with something specific for now. Well, after going over all that data, our Pokemon's ready to go. Oh wait, we don't have EV spreads. Since LabMouse pulls data from tournaments with open team sheets, this doesn't include EV spreads, so there's 0 info here for that. Of course, you can make your own EV spread using the advanced EV guide, but we can get a head start still. Fortunately for us, we can pull EV data from Pokemon Showdown. To get there, simply search Pokemon Showdown usage stats, or check the link in the description. This is a data dump from all Pokemon Showdown stats all the way back to 2014. Pretty crazy, but impressive, and beneficial for us. The stats are sorted by month, so if we navigate all the way to the bottom to get the most recent month of stats is August 2024 as of recording. This folder houses all formats on Pokemon Showdown, and VGC is near the bottom. So if we scroll to the bottom, we can see Gen 9 VGC 2024 Reg H with a dash and a number. Stats have been split between ladder rankings, which is nice to have as well. Also, Best of 3 has a separate usage stat, but we'll just use regular ladder for now. We can click on 1500 plus rating, since that cuts out a lot of low ladder jank and will better reflect the overall metagame. This is the page mentioned near the beginning of the video with exact usage stats. We can see on ladder Incineroar has higher usage than Gholdengo, but we want EVs right now. If we go back on our browser and scroll to the top, we can click Moveset. This takes us to what seems to be an identical page, but let's navigate to our format again. This page gives us pretty much the same info as LabMouse, but as mentioned, it uses a whole month of ladder games as stats. On Incineroar, we can see he was used 1.1 million times in August. That's almost 1,000 times more data than LabMouse. Notice we have abilities, items, and everything else LabMouse has, but just after that is the most common EV spreads. The stats are from left to right, HP, attack, defense, special attack, special defense, speed, and the nature is included. You may notice that EV spreads have much lower usage than a Pokemon, move, or item. That's because they're very customizable. The 252 HP attack spread we see is at the top of the usage with only 5%. But if I ran a spread of 244, 252, 4044, it counts as a completely different spread, despite functioning almost identically. Still, this gives us a good idea of what spreads the Pokemon runs, and we can copy some if we want. This is also the place to go when finding spreads to calc against, as mentioned in the advanced EV guide. Scrolling down to Gholdengo, it looks like 5 of the top 6 spreads all run 252 EVs in speed, meaning at least 34% of all Gholdengo run 252 speed EVs, with probably more than that for more unaccounted spreads. But about half of them are modest and half are timid. So when picking a spread for ourselves, if we want to stand our ground against other Gholdengo, we'll probably want to run max speed timid. This way we'll outspeed opposing modest and at least speed tie other timid. Say for example this 5th most common spread was at the top. We could probably get away with speed creeping that, just to have more EVs for bulk, but we'll go max speed timid for today. Let's make our Choice Specs Gholdengo timid, since it's already getting a huge special attack boost, and we'll make our Life Orb variant modest, to still hit really hard. Perhaps we'll pair it with some strong speed control, and we'll use that 5th most common spread, which has more bulk, for our Terra Dragon set, since it has a little bit more longevity. After all that, we have 3 potential Gholdengo sets. Whenever you want to see what the metagame is looking like, try checking out these pages earlier we saw with the exact usage stats. As a rule of thumb, I would say any Pokemon with a usage of 2% or higher is the cutoff for being meta relevant. Anything below 2% is a niche pick. 2% doesn't sound like a lot, but there's still 59 Pokemon in this format that reach that criteria. Try picking Pokemon from this list when team building, rather than just picking any old Pokemon with high stats or something that's your favorite when developing new teams. After you have a team that performs well and have had more practice, then you can try experimenting with more niche picks, still supported by strong Pokemon. If you made it to the end and you feel like this video was worth your while, please consider leaving a like, as that also contributes to the YouTube algorithm picking these up, and leave a comment of a niche Pokemon that you found success building with. Thanks for watching.